Hi, Jeremy here, Modern Vitality. In today's video, Mastering Your Circadian Rhythm, Part 1. We're looking at temporal arbitrage. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. Who knows, I might make more videos on this in the future, but for now, we've got to have at least 2 parts to cover this. So we're looking at temporal arbitrage. This is a term that I've created to describe a phenomenon I've observed, because the mistake a lot of people make is thinking every hour in the day is equal. Hours aren't equal, and hours don't slide. Okay, not all hours in the day are created equally in terms of biology. And I'm going to show you in this video, we're going to expand on this and explore so that you can leverage your actions and your efforts, especially if you're trying to get your health back. Okay, if you're dealing with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease, mold exposure, any of it, candida, long haulers, you name it, all these conditions, all these complex chronic inflammatory conditions, you don't tend to have extra energy to just be messing around with during the day. You need to be very strategic about when, not only what you do, but when you do it during the day. And I'm going to show you in this video and part 2 how to really plan and strategize for that so that you can make the most out of the time you do have. Because we all have the same 24 hours in the day, right? There's a famous saying about that. Everybody's got 24 hours in the day. So what are you going to do? Right? How come some people can get more out of their days than others? Well, it has a lot to do with timing and leveraging that timing. So I'm going to show you temporal arbitrage in this video. And then in part 2, we'll look at the actual circadian clock, because a lot of the work has been done for us historically. We've got thousands of years of cultural history in terms of people understanding how to time the body. And then looking further out beyond the day, we're looking at the seasons and the years and even maybe our human life cycle. So we'll explore that in part 2. But for this one, part 1, you need to understand temporal arbitrage. I'm going to break this down. I'm going to define it for you. I know it's kind of like big words and maybe sounds a little fancy. It's not that complicated once you get it, I guarantee. All right, let's get started. Because circadian rhythm is something that everybody's talking about now. It's becoming very popular. We're talking about getting light in the morning, getting out in the sun, feeling some infrared from the sun, and then timing your life so that you can go to sleep at night and getting away from screens and all this stuff, which is very cool. It's good to be tidy around our circadian rhythm. But I'm going to tell you there's so much more to it. So when we want to start to understand circadian rhythm, we need to understand this premise that not all hours are created equal. Okay, and my second piece of that is hours don't slide. So what I mean by that is anybody has experienced this in one capacity or another. And I'll give you the first example is waiting tables, right? I used to work in food service. I think everybody should do some kind of job like that at some point during your life, because you learn so much. And one of the things that I learned from food service, from waiting tables, is that not all days are the same and not all shifts are the same. So for example, anybody in food service, a bartender, anybody like that knows that Friday nights, Saturday nights, right? Those are your money nights. Those are the busier nights. More people come to restaurants on Friday and Saturday nights, as opposed to a Monday evening kind of shift, right? Depending on what kind of restaurant you're working at, maybe they have a lunch shift as well. So you'd rather work, if you want to get the most dollars per hour worked, right? You'd rather time your work strategically so that you're there on Friday night, Saturday night, maybe Sunday morning if it's a place with a big breakfast crowd, but you'd probably rather not be there at the Monday morning time slot, right? Because not all hours are equal. If you work in food service, you work in a restaurant, you know that 1 hour, the hour from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday night, is a much more densely packed hour than Monday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Right? You just know that those hours are not equal. And what I mean by that, and we're going to get into health in just a moment, so hang with me here. What I mean by that is that your opportunity to make money, right? If those are the things, the parameters you're using, if those are the attributes you're measuring, right? The opportunity to make money, you're going to have a lot more leverage on a Saturday night or Friday night. And Monday morning's a low leverage time. So you could say, yes, I worked 20 hours this week, and so did my identical twin, right? But my identical twin worked 20 hours of Monday mornings and the equivalents of that. And I worked 20 hours of Friday nights, Saturday nights, and all the hopping busy times, right? Of course, at the end of the week, one person, me, has way more money than my identical twin does, even though we both put in the same amount of time, right? It has nothing to do with the effort you expend. It has everything to do with the timing and understanding the rhythms of nature. So there are rhythms to a restaurant, right? Same thing for farmers. Working. I have a farm share. I go to get my food from the farm, and I said, oh, what time should I come pick it up? And they said, well, today we're doing hay. So we'll be taking a break around 2 p.m. That would be a good time for you to come in because we're out, baling up hay, right? And when you think about that, when you think about how farmers live in nature and they're watching the rhythms of the weather, the same way if you work in a restaurant, you can be observing the rhythms of the restaurant, right? So the farmers know it's going to be hotter in the afternoon around 2, so that's when they schedule their break. Meaning they know they can get more work done early in the day when it's not so hot and the sun's not directly over your head beating you down, right? So they have a higher leverage time in the morning. So they'd rather work doing the hay from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. or whatever, as opposed to starting at 2 when it's already hot out. You're going to be slower. You're going to be less efficient. It's going to be more difficult. It's going to be less fun. So understanding timing helps us pick not only what to do, but when to do it. And when we start to get really good at this, we can start to get more out of our 24 hours because we start to recognize which hours in the day are useful for which types of things, where we get the most leverage for what it is we're doing. And then we do those things during those times, right? This is something that once your eye is open to, you will see it everywhere. And you'll start to understand this is something many of us understand implicitly. We don't have to talk about it, but at the same time, we have blind spots. We may understand it in one domain, for example, waiting tables or a farmer working on getting the hay in or anything like that. But we don't necessarily understand it in terms of our health or how to structure our self-care or how to build our day so that we have advantageous times where we're doing the right things at the right time. This is so much of what I try to do with our group and our vault and the program I run is all about taking not only all the what's, right? All the things that we could do for our health, because there's so many things. There's like 10,000 things, right? They can all be promising. But taking those and organizing them into a structured plan so that you know which things to do first. Having an order, right? Taking this into the 4th dimension, which is time. Understanding how to structure your healing plan over time so that you know what's a good idea later, right? Why does some things work for some people and not for other people? Oh, I went on a forum and I asked about Lyme disease, or I asked about mold exposure and I asked for recommendations and somebody recommended this supplement worked great for them. I tried it, didn't work great for me. What's wrong with me? No, nothing wrong with you. Nothing wrong with that supplement. Probably a great idea. Your timing is off. That would be better for you when you're in stage 3 or stage 4, right? Having a stage model, knowing what body systems you're working on healing, in what order, it gives you a chance, an opportunity to take all the great ideas and then string them together in an order that makes sense. And it's the same thing when you structure your day for self-care. But the first part is recognizing this. I'm putting words to it, right? I'm talking about now, not every hour is the same. Hours aren't equal. And likewise, hours don't slide. You can't trade. So one of the things we're learning, sleep, for example, to bring this kind of home to more of a health application of this understanding, right? Sleep, it's better to go to bed earlier if possible. There's something about midnight or so where if you can get your 8 hours of sleep, but if you start and you sleep from midnight to 8 a.m., that's not the same quality of sleep as sleeping from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Getting your 8 hours in. It's a different 8 hours. Right? And we're learning this now. There's research, there's studies going on. People engaged in these kinds of conversations are finding out that you actually get better sleep if you time it where you're going to sleep earlier, before midnight. There are a couple hours before midnight that are actually more powerful for you. Now, the same thing could be said about sleep, carving it up. Now, I've seen people in the past, especially biohackers, they try to get creative with this, and it's okay to experiment, of course. But if you say, I need to get my 8 hours of sleep per day, every 24 hours. I need to be sleeping for 8 hours total. Then you may try something where you're sleeping for 2 hours, right? 4 times during the day. People do this. They just take 2-hour naps, right? 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. And then they also have 2 hours asleep and then 4 hours awake. 2 and 4, 2 and 4, 2 and 4. They try that because they think they're going to sleep a little bit, get refreshed, do 4 hours of work, sleep, get refreshed, and they put their body on these shorter cycles. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. Because a 2-hour block of sleep with a separation and then a 2-hour block of sleep and then a separation, etc. Those technically 8 hours of sleep don't add up to the same quality as 8 straight hours of sleep because you're not doing it at the right times, right? You're losing leverage, just like working at the restaurant all week during the slowest possible times. I worked 40 hours a week this week, but it was all the dead times in the restaurant. Of course, you didn't make any money. Of course. You could work 6 hours on a Saturday and make more than you did all the whole rest of the week on the dead times. And it's the same way about structuring your sleep, right? There are times in the day where you can have a greater opportunity to get better sleep. Isn't that interesting? Now, a lot of people think that they're night owls, and some people actually are, but most people think they're night owls are actually just introverted and they're getting quiet time, right? Or you've got an inverted cortisol thing going on where you're getting awake in the evening when you should be winding down. These are all things that you can work on re-regulating. This is what we do in our group. This is what we do in our program. We work on these things so that all of a sudden, after a few months, you're re-regulated and you don't even recognize the person you used to be because now you're on a whole different deal. You're just aligned to your body's nature. I used to be a night owl. Well, you're more introverted. There are ways around that. We have to figure out first what's actually the truth. What's going on with our perception, and then actually what's our subconscious want. What are we getting out of staying up late? And then are we willing to trade that to get our health back? Because those are the prime hours to be getting some sleep. Really amazing. So hours don't slide, which means I can't take my 8 hours of sleep and just slide those around anywhere during the day and expect to get the same results. It's not going to happen. Likewise, if you are somebody who is creative in the mornings, or you're trying to get your work done, or you're trying to be more productive, this is a big thing, especially like a lot of times people with complex chronic health conditions, they feel all their mojo has been kind of dampened down anyway. A lot of people feel a little bit stifled and they're not doing the projects they like to do. They're not working as much, or they're not working at all. There's a lot less energy outgoing, right? But what I have noticed is that as people go through a process, stage 1, immune, stage 2, digestion, stage 3, neuroadrenal, stage 4, blood circulation, right around then, stage 4, and then stage 5, which is kind of like a bonus. People in that area start to really be coming back to life, and they want to go do things and live their life and be productive, be creative, and go connect with other people, right? But it gets really interesting because at that point, then we're looking not at getting our health back and getting out of a pit, but we're looking at how can we optimize the energy we have now, even if we're at a normal energy level, but how can we really extract the most out of our days so that we can make up for lost time, go have fun, reconnect with people, but at the same time, not deplete ourselves. And that's a bit of an art. But what I can say is starting to learn how your day goes and how you move through your day. So if you're somebody who is getting back to work and now you want to be more productive, or you're back to creative projects and you want to be more creative and you're painting or you're writing or whatever it is you're doing, you're going to find those parts of the day when you're naturally more open to that, right? And once you learn that, don't waste that doing chores or housekeeping, right? Not all hours are equal. Hours don't slide. So if you find out that you're very creative, let's say, for example, from 8 a.m. to noon, that's a peak creativity time for you, then even though it's tempting to want to wake up and clean the house, you should really wake up and go do your creative work. Because you'll be able to clean the house later when your creativity is weighing down in the afternoon or 6 p.m. or whatever it is for you, where you've noticed, oh, these are more hours where I have a harder time with creativity. That's a great time to do the dishes. That's a great time to sweep the floor, right? Because you're not wasting that creative brain energy. You want to get as much leverage as you can out of the hours in the day. This is how we get the maximum out of life without burning out, right? It's when we try to force, if we take ourselves in a mode where we're not naturally creative and we try to sit there and grind that out, that's a lot of work. It's hard, it's difficult. So what I would encourage you to do is start to stack and prioritize what it is you want to get out of any given day. And another trap here is that people think, well, every day needs to look the same then because I'm going to optimize it, right? So every day I'm going to be exactly this schedule. You've got room to play. But at least once you know, the first thing you know is, okay, this is what I want to accomplish today coming up. And what does that mean? Is it a creative thing? Is it working? Maybe it is just cleaning the house. Whatever it is, you want to figure out what you want to accomplish. And then you need to decide what are the most high leverage times that you can do those things in. Now, the morning tends to be, for most people, a very high impact time. Not everybody, though. Some people are very groggy in the morning. And actually, if you find yourself being groggy in the morning, that would be a better time to do something that's kind of menial or mindless. Maybe that's your time to sweep the floor or take a shower or something like that doesn't involve a lot of creativity and being connected, because you're still getting kind of started. You're still getting woken up for the day. You need to learn your rhythm and also know that it may change and it may evolve over time. I've watched a lot of people go through this process, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what used to be a night owl that was sleeping in very late and was groggy, had a hard time getting started, those people started to shift, became a little bit more early risers, a little bit more energy in the morning, that kind of thing. So you want to understand your own rhythms, and you want to have this high value time be used for the thing that it's best for. Okay. It's like this idea of arbitrage. I'm going to explain this word. Arbitrage means taking something, understanding the relative values of things, right? So arbitrage is when you take something that's a low value in one place and then you take it somewhere else and it has a high value. For example, the spice trades, right? Back in the old days, we'd have the spice route. So you'd have merchants going all through Asia, through the Middle East to Europe. And there may be these spices from Asia, for example, ginger, right? Something like that. In Asia, very common. In the Mediterranean, not so common, right? So it has a high supply, low demand in Asia, and in the Mediterranean it would have a low supply, high demand, right? So you're arbitraging, you're going to a place where it doesn't have much value. Oh, it's ginger, yeah, we don't really think much of it. Get a bunch of it, take it to a place where people want it and don't have it, and you've done arbitrage, basically. That's how we do business, in general. It's like arbitraging things. So you're taking something from a low value area to a high value area. So what I would offer you is that you can arbitrage not just in space, but you can also arbitrage in time with your time. So when we look at temporal arbitrage, that means taking your high value activities and putting them into high value hours. So when there's something that you want to do, that you want to achieve, that you want to accomplish, you find the time where it's going to be the easiest to do that, right? Because if you try to do it otherwise, if you try to slide your hours or you try to do something at a time where it's not optimal, you're basically going to lose value on that. It's kind of like a currency conversion. If you go from one country to another country, right? In one country, the dollar will go, very far and buy you certain things. And when you go to a different country, everything's way more expensive. The cost of living is higher here, right? Or even within one country, within the US, different states have different costs of living. So your same dollar will buy you, so much food here, and it'll buy you even more food in a different state. But it's the same dollar. It's the same thing with our time. The same hour, right? You can invest 60 minutes in an activity. And depending on when that is, which hour that is in the day, you're going to get more out of that activity or less. So that's your temporal arbitrage, and understanding how to set up your days so that you're getting the most out of them, especially when there's a lot on the line and you don't have a lot of energy to begin with. This stuff, I know this is kind of like advanced and a little bit complex. Everybody's talking about circadian rhythms and waking up in the morning and exercising a little bit and trying to go to sleep at night and not staring at our phones, right? We get that. That's important. It is important. But the next step is to start looking at, okay, all the hours in between, how can I really understand my own rhythms and what I'm designed to do? And then how do I start to fit the things I want to do into my day in a way that makes sense so I'm going to get the most out of that, the hours invested. So we'll look at that in part 2 with the circadian clock. We've got it broken down to every 2 hours. This has been mapped out. And I would also offer you, if you are struggling with a complex chronic health condition, you may be interested in joining our group. It's a free group to join. You can be a guest. You can come check it out. We've got a vault full of interactive videos. We've got lovely people from all over the world who are going through the same kind of process, overcoming complex chronic health conditions. It's free to join. You can ask me anything when you're in there, and I'll really do my best to give you a helpful perspective so that you can get your head straight and start making a plan to heal for real and get your life back. All right, stick around for part 2. Cheers.